Friends, welcome to the channel. Today we will delve into the history of an artist whose work combined academic discipline, emotional depth, and almost photographic precision. You'll hear about how a great artist is formed, how his character is shaped, who influences his choices, and how a style is born that will later be recognized by the entire art world. Our hero was born on January 7th, 1852, in Paris, into a family of craftsmen far removed from the art world. Pascal Adolphe Jean Dagnan was the son of a tailor and was later raised by his grandfather after his father emigrated to Brazil. Later, he added his grandfather's surname, Bouveret, to his own. The boy grew up quiet, focused, and very attentive to detail. In his youth, he constantly sketched everything he saw: people on the streets, light falling on walls, small nuances of everyday life. Even then, it was clear that he was not just a talented young man, but a true observer who saw more than others. In 1869, Dagnan-Bouveret enrolled at the École de Beaux-Arts, where he studied in the studio of the outstanding academic Alexandre Cabanel, and later with the legendary Jean-Léon Gérôme. This was a period when French art was on the verge of great change. And it was during these years that Pascal learned two things that would shape his style for life: the uncompromising precision of academicism, and at the same time, the desire to see the truth in every detail. But there's another important point. During his studies, he met two people who would determine his future: artists Gustave Courtois and Jules Bastien-Lepage. Together, they created a kind of creative support triangle. They argued, inspired each other, shared ideas, and experimented. And it is here that Dagnan-Bouveret first feels that he wants to paint not cold academic subjects, but lively realistic scenes with real emotions. At the end of his studies, in the 1870s, his teachers already notice him. The young artist works calmly, almost silently, but with extraordinary dedication. He did not rush towards impressionism, like many of his peers, but instead sought his own path between academicism and naturalism. And it was this search that became the culmination of the first stage of his life. An artist was born who would combine the precision of the Gérôme school with the emotional honesty of Bastien-Lepage. Friends, we have now come to one of the most interesting turning points in the creative life of Pascal Adolphe Jean Dagnan-Bouveret. The moment when new technology literally opened the door to his own unique style. And yes, we are talking about photography, which was a threat to many artists at the end of the 19th century, but became an inspiration for him. After studying at the École de Beaux-Arts in the 1870s, Pascal continued to work alongside two close friends, Jules Bastien-Lepage and Gustave Courtois. It was his communication with Lepage, who sought absolute truth in art, that had a decisive influence on Pascal. Lepage was the first to show him that photography could become not an enemy of painting, but its best assistant. At that time, many artists feared that photography would render painting meaningless. But Dagnan-Bouveret saw it differently. He understood that the camera captures a moment, a gesture, light, facial expression, something that the human eye cannot always catch. And Pascal boldly welcomed photography into his studio. He began to take dozens of sketches of models, fabrics, hands, and nature, and based on these photos, he built compositions with almost documentary accuracy. It was then that his signature style was formed: crystal clear, austere, without romantic embellishments, but surprisingly emotional due to its truthfulness. Throughout the 1880s, he creates paintings in which academic structure is combined with photographic precision. This approach becomes his creative calling card. It is at this time that the canvases that will bring him fame at the Paris Salon and open the doors to the highest artistic circles in France are born. Critics noted that Dagnan-Bouveret painted as if light itself were shaping form. There is no random brushstroke in his works. Every stroke is refined. Every facial expression is vivid and strikingly accurate. The culmination of this period came when the artist moved from everyday and genre scenes to works filled with spiritual concentration and psychological depth. He chose his own path, not impressionistic, not academic, but one of truth, quiet emotion, and maximum honesty with the viewer. Next, we will talk about how, armed with this new language, Pascal created his most famous paintings, those that would define his place in art history. From 1880 to the 1890s, the artist created his most famous and recognizable paintings. It was these works that secured his status as one of France's leading realists, and the name Pascal Adolphe Jean Dagnan-Bouveret first resounded in all the art salons of Paris. One of his first major successes was the painting The Pardon in Brittany. To create it, Dagnan-Bouveret traveled to Brittany, a region of harsh nature, ancient rituals, and a restrained Catholic worldview. He carefully observed the local inhabitants, noting their gestures, clothing, gait, and even the peculiarities of their movements during religious processions. Critics wrote enthusiastically, "This is not just a genre scene, it is a document of the era, a preserved prayer of the people." The success was so great that the artist created several variations on the Breton theme, including Breton women at a pardon, a feminine, quiet, and at the same time majestic image of popular faith. The public felt the truth in these works, not theatricality, but the immediacy of life. After the triumph of the Breton cycle, he turned to the theme of the French army. This led to the painting The Conscripts, a profound, humane look at young men being sent off to serve. There is no pathos or heroism here, only a moment of farewell, excitement, sadness, and hope. This canvas demonstrates the essence of his art. He knows how to see drama in ordinary life, without exaggerating it, but also without diminishing it. The artist continues to develop expressive realism and creates several important religious canvases, such as Madonna of the Rose, where Dagnan-Bouveret departs from academic idealization and shows Mary not as an exalted symbolic figure, but as a woman experiencing human pain. His interpretation of religious scenes is always realistic, restrained, even austere, which is why his spiritual paintings look so real. The culmination of this period was his participation in the Exposition Universelle 1889, where Dagnan-Bouveret received the Grand Prix. This was official confirmation that he was one of the most accurate, intelligent, and sophisticated realists of his time. In the next part, we will talk about his later years, when recognition and success were intertwined with personal melancholy, professorship, and a quiet departure for public life. At the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries, society was changing. Impressionists appeared on the scene, followed by post-impressionists, and then completely new movements that would break with the old academic world. But Dagnan-Bouveret did not try to catch up with fashion. On the contrary, he reinforced his own philosophical line, turning to calm, meditative compositions dominated by silence, light, and depth of feeling. In November 1900, Dagnan-Bouveret was elected to the Académie des Beaux-Arts of France, becoming one of the youngest artists ever to receive this honor. It was a time when young artists came to him as a moral authority, a man who proved that true talent can combine academic training and spiritual sincerity. His later works are no longer about external spectacle. They are about inner state, about the spirituality he sought all his life. The paintings of this period often seem very quiet, but in this silence there is a power that cannot be confused with anything else. At the same time, the artist traveled a lot, worked in Franche-Comté, and spent time in his studio, surrounded by family and friends. It was there, in this tranquility, that his last paintings were born, imbued with tenderness, wisdom, and a slight sadness about how quickly eras pass. In 1929, at the age of 77, Dagnan-Bouveret died in Quincy-sous-Sénart, leaving behind a huge legacy. Today, his paintings can be seen in museums in France, the US, and Europe, and each one reminds us that true realism is not just accuracy. It is the ability to see the soul in a face, in a gesture, in a glance, in the most mundane scene. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If you liked the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. It really helps our project grow. And a special thanks to those who vote for videos using the hype feature. Your activity makes a huge contribution to ensuring that more people see stories about great artists. You are incredible, and it is thanks to you that this channel lives on. See you in the next videos.